Hello, everybody, and welcome again back to Procrastinator's Pit Stop. And we have another amazing guest here for you today, Joshua Monge. As a fractional COO and operations expert, Joshua brings extensive experience in economic development, urban economics, and sustainable business practices, having worked across various industries to streamline processing divine growth. Passionate about permaculture and sustainable living, he offers valuable insights on building resilient businesses and integrating sustainability into business strategies. Joshua, welcome to the show.
Hey, Chris, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, we're happy to have you, and I think this is going to be a good one. But before we dive into it, we do have an icebreaker on the show, and today's question for you was, which cartoon character do you resonate the most with, and why?
My gosh. Okay. I think I struggled with that one a little bit. So I think the current answer is going to be the Roadrunner, because I grew up kind of in the 70s, 80s. So yeah, basically, he kind of runs along and does his thing and he's very focused on what he's supposed to be doing and he doesn't get distracted. If you would ask me this question probably like 10, 15 years ago, I probably would have been the other side of it, the Wile E. Coyote. Always coming up with ideas, always trying things, and always kind of hitting my head or never quite catching that goal or that elusive objective. And I think now being on the other side of it, just kind of knowing what I want to do, staying focused on that, not getting distracted, kind of just then things come against you or challenges or whatever, you just kind of keep plowing your way through.
No, I like that one. And actually, I think that Wile E. Coyote actually fits a lot of us because we do tend to overcomplicate things. And the other one that comes to mind when I think about Wile E. Coyote and how we sometimes overbog ourselves with complicated things is the Rube Goldberg machines.
Yeah, I like
So yeah.
I like the I think I was like in high school or something like that. We had to take one. Like, what was a simple process and how to make it more complicated and add more features to it. And I think that's probably why I like the game Mousetrap. Did you ever play that game when you were a kid? Yeah.
Yeah, Mousetrap. Yeah,
Yeah. Like big, long thing to build.
yeah. For those listeners who weren't born when dinosaurs were roaming the earth, Mousetrap is this game where you actually had to build a very sophisticated trap, and the best part of the game, I guaranteed, was just building it and then just flicking a little ball so it brought down this little cage onto the mouse.
Yeah. I don't even remember like the rest of the game. I like supposedly it was a game to build the trap, but then the final thing was the trap. So I don't know, cut to the quick, build the trap, have fun.
Exactly. Yeah, that was my fun thing too. Anyway, and so just moving on from that for now. Otherwise, I could spend hours talking about Mousetrap and characters. I'm sure that nobody would like that.
Isn't that a form of procrastination? Is to not actually talk about what you're supposed to talk about and be distracted by other things?
It is, and that comes into that comes into play with the whole new shiny distraction. I want to talk about something that is maybe more interesting to me, and it's because I hadn't heard anybody mention Mousetrap for probably the last, I don't know, 20 years.
Great. Dated myself already on this show. This is great.
Yeah, so it happens. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, Joshua? Where you came from and sort of how you got to where you are today?
Sure. So most recent, I am a transplant to Tulsa. Came through a program called Tulsa Remote, where you have to apply and then they give you a grant to relocate to the area. So I've been in Tulsa for the last few years, two and some change. Have an office downtown, live by the riverside, and work as a fractional COO. And then before that, I was the director of economic development for a local chamber up in Oregon and did that for about 3 years. And I actually left the chamber in February of 2020. It was just at a transition point, and so stepping out. And one of the opportunities I was going to be walking towards was a COO position for a manufacturing facility, 10 million in revenue, 40 employees. The CEO, the company was growing pretty fast, and the money people that were around him wanted to bring somebody in to be a number two because the CEO was making good enough money that he was out dirt biking and bungee cord jumping and all these things. And I guess one of the times he was out, he broke his back or neck or something. I don't remember. He broke something serious. And so they were really worried that there was nobody else to run the organization while he was gone. And so I was vetted and I was asked to basically take that position. But as you probably realize, February of 2020 was not a great time for career transitions. Eventually, they decided to put the position on hold until the COVID thing blew over. I'm using air quotes for those that aren't seeing the video or whatever. Um, so basically, that job went away. So I had to bring something to market quick because my family likes food and shelter. And so I put together a SEO business and I got that to six figures in 18 months, just through solid business planning, solid structure. I knew who my ideal client profiles were or ICPs. And then I sold audit services and I was a work with provider. So that was enough market differentiation that people were clearly like, oh, I see you're doing something different. I want that. So with everybody going online, not knowing how to do SEO and everything else, that that's what got me started. As I was doing that, I had a friend of mine that was a fractional CFO for a regional CPA firm, i.e. the CPA firm contracted him out as a fractional CFO. He saw what I did and he was like, Joshua, you should get back to getting into operations and helping people. He's like, you should look at becoming a fractional COO. I was like, oh, okay. I don't know what that is. So I did some research and then he gave me some tools and resources. And about the end of 2021 was when I was starting kind of that process. And then been doing that now for a few years and really enjoy it. It's my way of kind of helping businesses back from like my chamber days slash, when I had an agency before, but now I can do it in a way of like, hey, here's very specific things I know how to watch for and what to fix. And so, yeah, I love it. It's so much fun.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing that. And yeah, 2020 was quite a different time for most of us. I'm sure back back there. Uh, so what is procrastination to you, and what does it mean to you personally?
Procrastination. Can I tell you later? Just kidding. Probably heard that joke a million times. um, I think it's I've done a little bit of reading on it. I mean, not just prepping for this, but in other circumstances. And I think it sometimes is for some folks, maybe a fear of success. That, man, if I actually do this and put the time, energy in, like, I'm actually going to achieve this goal that I've had forever, that I keep kicking the can down the road. And then you have to deal with the, like, now that you have to give up kicking the can down the road, you have to find another activity to do. And so you're kind of fearful, like, well, I've been, you know, here, I'll give you an example, like, running a marathon, like that's on my bucket list. And so, my wife's like, when are you going to work on that? And I've made a few attempts on it. And, I want to do it when it's ideal, but then I never set up the situation for the ideal to be realized. So then it's always going to be that bucket item that I'm never going to get to. I don't know. Some people think a bucket list is when you're dead, like then you look in the bucket and these are all things you didn't do. But maybe it's the things you're supposed to do before you die, I guess. Anyway, so I think procrastination, I think, is just not wanting to deal with the reality of that kind of situation and addressing that. And I think for myself, it has to do with fear of success because I get that done, then I have to think about what I have to do next. And that kind of, I don't say worries me, but I have to get used to being done with things and then moving on to the next thing. And that's a discipline of practice that I have. And then I've continued to practice and continue to work on.
Okay. So you would say that for you, procrastination is more about, I guess, the worry of not having something else to do.
Yeah, right. It doesn't make sense when you actually speak it.
Uh,
I mean, it's like, okay, well, for a lot of business owners, right? So like they need to fix their website. Just good example. Just update your, contact forms or make sure that your customer journey is there or just those little pieces that they know they need to do, but they don't do it. Why? Because they're afraid that if it works, then they're going to have like 20 people calling them and then they're going to have all that work and they're going to have to figure out, they're going to have another set of problems they have to fix and worry about. And so it's just easier to be like, well, I need to work on the website, but I can't because I don't have time. I'm busy. So you don't do it. And then now you don't have to worry about that success. Fear of success is kind of ridiculous because you don't even if you did fix your website, doesn't mean there's going to be 20 people contacting you. Or, if you do follow up with that client, that big client that you've never done before, follow up with them. You don't actually know what's going to happen to you. Actually standing there having to face the reality of that you've helped create. So,
Well, you've actually stepped into a couple of different kinds there. In the five archetypes of procrastinators, there's a little bit of the worrier there, because the worrier is always, like, what if, and except it's on the other end, right? So what if I get this done? Then what's next? What if I, you know, what if I never, what if this is the pinnacle of my success?
yeah,
What if it's all downhill from here? I've heard that here. So, what you're saying, it does make a lot of sense. I mean, a lot of our fears are irrational to begin with, but realistically, a fear of success, is just that. Like you said, what to do next, and then if you dig a little bit deeper, you're gonna find, not always, but oftentimes you'll find, well, okay, this is it. This is what I did. Kind of like, now what, right? So it is pretty normal, but like you said, it does hold us back from actually completing things that are really great. The other thing, the other archetype that might kind of fit into is the dreamer. So we love planning it, absolutely love planning it out. We say, oh, this is going to be great. We're going to grow this business to 100 million, and then you're going to be like, okay, well, how do I do that? And then you're going to say, yeah, but then I need to have this, and then I need to have that, and I'm not interested anymore. It sounds like a lot of work, right? But just by kicking it into smaller bits, you can actually keep those things kind of moving forward as well. Do
yeah.
you find that you ever really procrastinated at all in your life in that respect, aside from the marathon?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the nice thing about, I don't know, I guess having a few years under your belt is you kind of realize like the behaviors and patterns that you had in the past, like, they bring you to where you are now, but you still have the choice at this moment to decide what your future is going to be and help to influence that. And so I think the reason why I've had success with these last businesses is because I had to sit down and, I have a client roster. So every week I print out the client roster and I go through and how do I touch each of my clients? And then I have blocked off time on my schedule for doing specific tasks and specific work. So when, Tuesday at I think 3 o'clock shows up, I know exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. And so by creating those patterns and those systems where basically I'm kind of acting on a script that's already been written, it keeps me on track and it keeps me moving things forward. And so the nice thing is when I have those planning sessions where I'm like, okay, this is the new goal or this is the new area or direction I need to go, I can then work backwards, right? Break those into smaller pieces, time that out, and then lay that out for me and basically just work that plan that I've built already. So, and I think that's what's been super helpful with, fighting against the procrastination piece of it or those fears or concerns or worries is putting in a system in place that, I know what I'm doing every day pretty much. And I also practice a little bit of like self meditation. So in the morning, practice gratitude, silence. And so having that discipline every morning, even at home and even when I come to the office, I've got both of those helps me set my mindset, kind of gets me in the right place. So then I'm not being dragged around by my tail trying to figure out which way, what am I doing next or what's the next thing I'm supposed to be doing or feel like doing or don't feel like doing.
No, but what you said there is it's pinnacle for kind of like the starting basis of any real plan, right? You have, I imagine, you have your brain dump, and then you have your tasks, and then you do time blocking, and all these are tools that you've built into processes for these other companies as well, right? Um, what's the biggest challenge, do you think, in implementing a system?
It's the change. Uh, you know, uh, think about how many times people they have this like radical idea, like, oh, I'm gonna like organize my whole life, or I'm gonna redo the whole blah blah blah. And you pick something, right? Some big grandiose project, and you buy all the tools and energy, get everything behind it, and then you go to implement it. And then after about a week or two, you kind of start gravitating back towards the old behaviors and the old system. So I think the change that I advocate for and I'm a big fan of is small changes over time and basically continuous improvement. So, your system is not perfect right now and you want it to be perfect. Great. Then why don't you work on making it perfect just a little bit each day? And the nice thing about that is there's no big radical change. All of a sudden shifting gears and pushing everything around all over the place. You're slowly implementing these small little changes that people can adopt and get into. So like even with some of the companies, you know, people want to go and show up to their job and they want the same, they want to do the work that they've been hired to do. And when you tell them, by the way, we're doing something a little bit different or we're doing something completely different, they're going to freak out and then you're going to have resistance and it's going to be hard to implement. But if you tell them, hey, listen, this is your job. This is where we're trying to get to. And here are the changes that we want to see over time. Then you get buy-in because some people can see that. And then you're also not asking them to change overnight. So, but it doesn't work great for like people that want instantaneous change. But I think that compounding effect, give it enough runway, you'll see the change that you want.
No, no, of course. Actually, you hit a couple of really good points there. Actually, the first one is that instant change one. Instant change is possible.
Definitely.
I'm going to say that it is possible, but most of us aren't going to get there. And I'll explain to you why. It requires you to understand yourself 100%. Because in order to change habits, like to really change habits fast, you have to understand, how is the habit, not serving you maybe right now or serving you, but you have to understand how did it serve you in the past as well. And not only that, but why. If you unravel that, yeah, you can change any habit overnight.
Yeah.
But not
That's
all of us are going to sit there.
that's a lot of self-awareness that one has to have to be able to do that. And yeah, that's
Exactly.
usually get there by either pain or you see some other desired outcome by somebody else and you're like, why is they it looks so much easier the way they do it. Like, what am I not doing? Great. Welcome. You're ready to start.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, while it is, exactly as you said, the easiest ways to those habits are, like bridging them or just making those small steps every day, like you said.
Yeah.
And just to, because otherwise, you're gonna be sitting there for years of years of therapy trying to figure things out, right?
Right,
So,
right. Yeah, or you're always going to be unhappy and, or the other side, like, too, is those fads. Like, I mean, my shelf is filled with like business books and I've got, the different trends that have happened over the decades or years. And it's very exhausting to go from one extreme to another extreme and just keep switching things around. You know, just do small things over time. You'll see the results. It will take longer, but they'll be more sustainable and they'll have more impact.
yeah, that's one of the big hurdles to get over is that instant gratification, right? So, how when you sit down with a business and they're looking at changing things yesterday, how do you try and help them get into the mindset that maybe we're not going to be moving at breakneck speed?
My gosh, I know. I think I'm like a terrible salesperson because the first thing I have to tell people is, listen, I know you have this punch list of a million things you want to get done and like you need to fix because everything's on fire and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Most of the clients I'm dealing with, they're successful, but they're dying from success. Like the system got more complicated than they realized, faster than they realized, and didn't manage that complexity. And so they're finding themselves like they have clients, they have money, like they have cash flow and they have staff or some sort of staff. Uh, but they're at a place where it's not working, it's not cohesive, it's not humming like a machine. And when you have more than one part run in a machine, right? Like you have potential for conflict and for those pieces not to align. And so usually what I tell people is basically like with operations, I'm here to slow everything down to get things built and structured so we can get things in alignment. And for those that, if you're just listening to audio, but imagine two gears, right? Trying to be in alignment. When they're out of alignment, they're grinding and they're smashing. But when they're in sync, they can actually work together really well and really nice. And so I kind of use that analogy when I talk to people. The other one, and another client gave me this one, if you're ever stuck in the snow and your tires are spinning super, and you're hitting the gas and it's just spinning, 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 you actually need to like slow down and slowly hit the gas. And sometimes you can get enough traction that it'll help get you out of that. So between those analogies, I think that's super helpful. And then most of the clients that I work with, they're usually in pain. There's some, they're working 80 hours a week. They're stressed about some aspect of their business that's really causing them discomfort. And so I can come in and talk to them like, hey, by the way, you know, let's get this, you're working 80 hours a week. If we start mapping these processes and kind of get these documented, we can start seeing where there's opportunities to maybe take some of the workload off of you and hire other people to take on some of that stuff. And so I try to do my best to kind of show people the pain that they're in and then what's the path to get out and the process for it. And it's never as fast as people want. Like people want it done tomorrow, but I find that the things that we've implemented have stuck and they continue to stick by doing it slower and a little more intentionally.
Yeah, I like that that analogy with the excuse me, with the car in the snow. And actually, the physics behind it is really interesting because if you go too fast and you gun it, you're creating heat, so you melt the snow and then you create ice, and then you can't get traction on the ice. Yeah, that's very Canadian or north of 60.
Yeah. See, well, there I am. Yeah, Pacific Northwest definitely had some good life lessons to learn from being up there.
Yeah, so can definitely see that. And actually, just going into this as well, I'd like to hear your take on it. Everybody's buzzword right now is AI. So in your processes, how heavily do you lean into AI?
Um, it's part of my workflow. I mean, I have multiple workflows, and AI is a part of some of that. Simply because if it's repetitive and it's uninspiring, and answer to the solution, or sorry, the solution is usually something simple and it's pretty repetitive, then AI is a great place to put that in there. So I think for me, because I'm very operations minded, sometimes I miss out on some of the like inspiration piece. So I'll use like, GTP to, hey, I'm stuck. Here's where I'm thinking like this. Here's my inputs. Like, give me some ideas. And then it just generates random ideas. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I didn't think about that. Thank you for that. I also use it, like for some documents, like I handwrite a lot and then I'll take a picture of it and I'll have the GTP like read it and then transcribe it into notes. I'm like, cool, thank you. Now I have my notes. I'll use it to summarize articles, some sales technique thing. I'm like, oh, cool, but I don't want to sit here for 30 minutes reading the whole thing. Can I just get the highlights, please? I use AI for that. And then I'm looking at some other automation techniques. I have one client that he records all of his sales calls going out, and then uses Make to take those recordings, evaluate the call, and then it judges the call based on some criterion that they've set for the appointment setter to like capture. And so then it'll catch like, by the way, on this call, you missed asking for this, and this. And it's a real-time evaluation because then he sends the updates right away. We're looking at batching those because it's a little intimidating every time you get off the phone. The computer's like, you didn't do this, you didn't do this. So we're going to batch those up. But there's a way, to use anyway. I can keep going, but okay, last one. I'm also using it to record my videos and then I put them in a program called Cast Magic, which then will evaluate the scripts and then I can create a little mini wiki from that meeting and then identify the to-dos, the takeaways, what could I have said better, like that kind of stuff. So I'm using it for a feedback system, even evaluating what I'm doing.
And in your line of work, I mean, seeing where this is going, I mean, do you think that AI is going to be making us maybe lazier or maybe like just compound our problems that we have, like procrastination in some cases?
Oh, it's a yes, but, or a yes, and I don't know, depending on how you want to phrase that. There's definitely like for operations, you have a workflow that's happening and then some of those steps, you really need a person to do this thing, right? Like let's say, oh, I'll give you a good example. Well, this is more not quite AI, but kind of. So I have a webhook. So when you book a meeting on my Calendly, it automatically feeds into my CRM. That's a little AI-ish because there's some decision trees in there that I put in, kind of. So now that basically took away that back and forth, emailing back and forth and asking a million questions. And I have a whole workflow on like what it looks like when you don't use it. It takes a couple of days, email exchange back and forth. When you actually use Calendly, then someone books your calendar right away and it just cuts all that out. And so I think AI can be helpful in those areas where why are we doing it this way? Or like, can we get someone else to do some of that piece? Like QA would be a good example. Like with that phone call, there's a good example for it. On the other side, you could be, looking for perfection with the AI and you're playing with the tool all day. And so then 2 hours later, you're like, man, I just needed one social post. And I've gone down like 16 rabbit holes. Or you create all this content and you're like, great, I'm going to read it or get back to it someday. But you were just, that's a form of procrastination, right? Is you don't actually get to the task you need to get to because you're playing with something else. But I think AI as a helper or as a like an exponential kind of element to your work, it's going to be great. And there's people that are going to succeed and do really well at it. I think for some people, it's going to be a crutch. They're going to rely on it too heavily and have it do everything for them and all their thinking. And then, on the not to be a Luddite, but on some end, some of those jobs are going to go away. I've watched marketing agencies fold because they're like, oh, all my clients are now using AI to do the marketing. And I just think to myself, well, what low level service were you providing or doing that you couldn't? How did you get replaced? How did you get replaced? Like, how did you not demonstrate value in such a way? I don't know. I don't mean to be harsh, but the data is there. Like, why did that happen?
Okay, so in your eyes, AI is only a threat to those, I guess, organizations, companies, individuals that really don't have, anything kind of unique to offer.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a commodity and you're playing in the commodity type service providing, and technology was already a little bit of a threat to you, and now, this is technology plus. Yeah, you're gonna have a hard time, but I don't think you should fight it though. I think you should find a way to like leverage it. There's tons of training around it right now. People are trying to get people to use it responsibly and to be more engaged. And I know, like, do you remember like AI prompt engineers is a thing now? It's, make six figures figuring out how to get the AI to do what you want. So I don't know, but it's a tool like everything else. I mean, people were freaking out when word processors came out. They're like, oh, it's going to ruin the typing ability and skills. And, oh, I type 120 words a minute. That's a high value task that, okay. Like, sorry, like technology changes. I don't know. We now have cameras in our phones. We don't do photo processing the same way. So it's just the nature of how the world moves forward. So I don't know. I don't see it as doom and gloom, maybe, but then I relegate it as technology. So maybe that's why.
Well, I mean, there are certain points that you could hit there. The first one being, maybe the graphic artist was worried that computers or AutoCAD or Adobe InDesign would take away their jobs or whatever. But then they just learned how to use Adobe InDesign, right? But I think that the biggest fear, I guess, that comes out of AI right now is just how fast it's advancing and how fast could it actually replace a person. So I guess just looking at your own line of work, I mean, what's the most complex process that you have set up for a client that maybe would have removed like a human chain completely?
Yeah, it's funny because I deal with service-based businesses, so that there's always a human component that needs to be done by human beings. So that's the reason why I like it. I've eliminated steps or I've made efficiencies through the use of technology. But as far as completely eliminating a job because an AI did it, I don't have that yet. I am seeing for like administrative assistants or like EAs, some of that work is getting kind of wiped out. If you're not using overseas, you know, administrative services and you're trying to, get calendaring figured out and get your workflow figured out and documentation and all this other stuff. But if you're using a US person, then you're probably going to use someone abroad, and that's a cost savings. But then if that job can be sent abroad, then that job can probably be done by AI, at this point. So I think those jobs are going away. But I've read reports where when it comes to language learning, reviewing the language and then doing interpretation, that's what lawyers do. And so there's, I think, more traditional white collar jobs or higher paid jobs, there's potential for that, for AI to start encroaching in those areas. Um, and then for me personally, on the operations side, there are definitely tools out there where they'll record your screen like while you're doing things, and they'll create an SOP or an operation process for you. So then you wouldn't necessarily need me to do that. Where the human piece comes in, and this is where again, even the warning that I was saying before, great, now I know those tools are out there. I need to be able to leverage those and then figure out where's the value that I add to make those tools even more useful, because then they can become an exponential effort on my effort. So then my value just increases significantly, because I can tell you, you've done this process 20 times. It's recording 20 different versions, and now you need some sort of resolution. Tell you what, let me help you resolve that, and let me help you to figure that out.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. Um, so are you taking any courses then in terms of AI, or do you recommend any courses?
No, nothing right now. I think for, I, I, I mean, oh man, I don't want to age myself here again, but I remember like when websites, weren't really you had to type in the little IP address to go look at things, and it was all text. And so, I've watched technology advance over the last 30 years, 40 years. Gosh, that's a lot. And, so for myself, I have always found that it's best to experiment and to try and to practice things. So I think with the AI, what I've been doing is just watching what other people are doing and then kind of picking up what they're recommending. I think like low hanging fruit, if anybody wants to, futz around with this ChatGPT, you can build your own GTPs. Like you can build your own version of like a GTP, and so you can practice like building little models or logic systems or your own version of it. And the nice thing is it's sandboxed, so it's off to the side and you can play around with it. So, example of that is if you put in like your company values and your insights and how samples of your writing, you could ask it to help you, write some content for you or give you social post ideas. So, I mean, that's what I would recommend. But definitely experiment first and before you go whole hog. And that's, sorry, can I like sandbox for sorry, not sandbox, soapbox here for half a second. Before you automate, manually do it. So like manually do whatever process before you get AI to jump in and take over it, because I think sometimes you don't realize like it's more complicated than you think, or there's these little nuances. And AI or even automation, once you get it going, it's just going to do that same thing over and over again at scale. And so if it's wrong or off or not appropriate, you're basically going to create a big giant mess at the end. So, and then do a dry run through with like, practicing it, then start layering in those tools and resources.
Mhm. No, that definitely makes a lot of sense. I mean, you wouldn't want to repeat an error 10,000 times.
Yeah, for the back in the old days when you had to like code websites by hand. Well, a copy paste trick is you can open up a Excel sheet and like build, and then you copy, and you're like, oh, good, I'm good to go. And then you launch the code, and you're like, oh no, I have an extra comma in there, and I've repeated it 10,000 times. Yeah.
So, just looking towards the future, where do you see yourself in your company in the next, say, the next year?
Yeah, so on the fractional COO side, I just see myself continuing down this path of helping other people build their business and making my business building other people's business on the operation piece. I like it. Think of it kind of like the car mechanic, right? Like, oh, I love fixing cars. Like, I love fixing businesses, like, and the mechanical pieces of it. And, you know, you set up a good shop in a good spot and you have people flow through and you get to try all different kinds of things. And, sure, there's advancements in different types of models of cars and different services and everything else. But for the most part, businesses are all, pretty much the same foundation of and taking customers in, capturing sort of some payment, providing a service or good, following up with them, like that core, it's still there. So I can see myself just continuing to do this in the future. So I really enjoy it.
Well, no doubt you'll have a lot of success in that. My question is too, since you've had so much success, I mean, we always like to look at it from both angles. What would you say was your biggest challenge creating the business where you?
Getting out of yeah, getting out of my way, like the old me of how I did things. I had to create safety rails or safeguards for myself. So, everything from like contracts to intake forms to how I take on clients, everything. I pretty much document everything and I've got a process for just about every step. So I make sure that I follow those guidelines. And yeah, I mean, I ran a terrible, full disclosure, I ran a terrible business for like almost 10 years when I first did a business back before I knew what I was doing. So I think that was all informative for now. And so when I've spun this up, my wife was like, I remember when we did this last time. And she was like, I don't know if I want to go on that ride again. And I was like, no, but it's different this time. She was like, yeah, how? And I was like, oh, here, boom, 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 boom. She's like, okay, let's see. And then the proof is in the pudding. So it's funny that you mentioned success. I don't feel successful. I feel like I'm doing okay. Especially when you look at like others online and, I know you're not supposed to compare to others, but, you know, the version of success, I have kind of two versions. I have the one, it's like, am I taking care of my family? Are my clients taken care of? And like, am I doing okay financially? Yes. Great. Then that's success. And then there's the other part of me that's like, but what does that next, journey look like in that next voyage? And then how do I get myself prepped to do that? So
Well, you bring up an interesting point there that success is different things to different people. Thanks for calling me out on that for one thing. I'm not gonna use that, but you're absolutely right. Success is different things to different people. But
yeah,
I have no doubt that you're gonna hit those goals, and I'm sure that we'll be happy and trying to follow you on that for sure.
some,
Just coming up here, I know we're coming up pretty close to the time here. Would you think there was anything that I should have asked that didn't ask, or anything we shouldn't have covered that we didn't?
let's see. So we talked about procrastination and we talked about businesses, everything else. I think, I'm one of the things, I don't know, it's in the line of procrastination, but maybe not. Like, I'll just throw it out there. One common thing I found is small business owners that are succeeding as far as like the business is running and all of that. Um, they tend to get addicted to like firefighting because they're like the choke point for everything. So there's like the version of life that they want to live that if they stop firefight, like you put out the fires, you get everything organized and structured. Now go move into the next phase of life and next phase of your journey and enjoy it. But they are so used to like, well, the last couple of years I've always been putting out fires, or always I've had to always keep my finger on everything, or everything has to clear through me. If you start delegating that and you actually start working on your business and creating processes and get it operationally sound, you can actually go into that next version of your life and enjoy that. And yeah, sure, there's going to be some new challenges and new problems, but you're going to get out of that cycle of the old one. So I just want to advise everyone, or just, encourage people like, hey, listen, you've been doing the same thing for the last few years. You're hitting your head against the wall continuously and you're just feeling really frustrated. You got to change. You don't have to throw everything away, but start working on it and then realize that new behavior, you can't go back to the old behaviors and keep setting fires to things. Once all the fires out, you should be setting fires. You should be moving forward with the business. So just wanted to throw that out there.
No, that's a very good point, and it falls into a couple of different camps, right? Because business owners, I mean, it's a lot of times it's their baby. You don't necessarily trust your baby with just anybody. Although honestly, most business owners are more protective of their businesses than they are of their children.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said it. I said it. I said it. But
Yeah.
I mean, let me put it to you this way. If you're a small business owner, when's the last time you took like 3 weeks or a month or more than 2 months figuring out a new phone service or a new service to get for your business? And how long did you spend, leaving your little one with the next door neighbor? Did you do a criminal check on that neighbor? Did you? Or that high school kid that they recommended? Did you check their references?
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Yeah, I think yeah, because it's you, right? When you start this, it's you and it's your personality and your passion and your drive. But I think for the people out there that are succeeding or they're moving forward, they're hiring people and they're taking on more work, there's just a level of complexity that builds into the system that they're doing. And so they need someone to oversee that or someone to manage it. And that's a tricky one to catch because when's the right time to hire somebody and when's the right time? I don't know. But the last piece on that is, the team that got you here is not the team that's going to get you there, or even the systems or process or everything that you've done that's gotten you to this point. If you're trying to get to that next, version of your business or what you're trying to do, it's going to require change. So you can either change because you're going to burn out from your business, or you can change because you actually want to move forward. But yeah, I mean, you're going to get to that point.
Well, and it's something else too that happens in those cases. I mean, there's this very popular concept called the drama triangle, and 98% of our relationships are in drama triangles, and that's no different to business. And we can actually get so accustomed to drama that we don't know what to do without drama, right? So that's sort of the other part of it as well.
Yep. I like that. Who said save the drama for your mama? I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a song like that too. No drama from the mama or something.
Ever.
Anyway, we are coming up towards the end here, and I would like to thank you once again for joining the show today, Joshua. And just before we go, what is the best way for our listeners to get in?
Best way. You can find me on LinkedIn. So it's Joshua and then Monge. I think show notes, maybe we can put it in there. Then you can also reach me on my website, thinkadaptbuild.com. I have a free 30-minute session on there. And if Chris wants, I can actually put a super special link in the show notes and I'll double that. So if you want an hour of talking about operations or whatever, I'll help you. Like as a thank you to listening and participating in all of this, we could put that together. And yeah, website and LinkedIn. I'm really easy to find. I'm probably hard to book. That's the that's the flip side of that.
Well, thank you so much for that, and to all our listeners, yes, we will be putting that into the show notes. So please feel free to take advantage of that offer. Really great offer there. So definitely take advantage of that. And just once again, thank you for tuning in for your dose of motivation, inspiration, and tips and tricks. And just remember, if you can't find that motivation or inspiration for yourself today, maybe just be that motivation, inspiration for someone else. And we'll see you again next time.
Good one. Thank you.